Well, here we are again, folks. It's Brother Peter with tidbits from the Word. I'm a man of 72 years of age right now. When I was a young man, education was something that I thought you got only at recess and playtime. And my brain was shut off much of the time that I was in my younger education years. And because I didn't listen to what was being said. I couldn't conceive what was being said because my mind wasn't tuned in to it. And being a poor fella and having wore hand-me-down clothes and on my little old mind there were things like, well, I'm not, my shoes aren't good, my pants aren't good, my life's not good, kinda, and I allowed things to interfere with me getting an education. And many teachers would teach, and they would speak over what I was able to comprehend. What I comprehended at home was, in a sense, very forceful, very do this or do that, or this is it. And you didn't get that at school. A page would be read, and then they would ask, what did they read? Well, I didn't comprehend what they read, and therefore I was in a tough situation. And in the 7th grade, I had a teacher, I'll never forget her name. Her name was Miss Libby, and Miss Libby said, Peter, I believe that you have the ability in your head to be able to comprehend these things or whatever, if we can break through and get to what's holding you back, what your problem is. And so therefore, Miss Libby took me, kept me back a year, and actually taught me more in the 7th grade than I had learned all the way to the 7th grade. I did many things. I went to a one-room schoolhouse. In that one-room schoolhouse, I walked to school in the morning, a 9-mile trek. The last year I was in that school. And I would run across the mountain on a trail and see moose and deer and the brooks and the creeks and the ledges, and walk and run across the ledges, have a good time. I had a good time. I could run, trot faster than anybody in town longer. And I got to school first. I was the first one there. I got in and got the wood in and opened the furnace door, got the wood in the furnace, got the fire going. And we had a one-room schoolhouse, and we got the fire going. In the wintertime, I lived up north, and children began to show up, and there was no way to get to the school except walk up. The school was built up on top of a rock, a big rock, and there was no way to get up there except to walk. So we'd walk up on there. At recess time, we'd go out, and the sleds would be out there and everything. We'd slide down the hill, backside of the rock, and have a good time. And there was times of getting the firewood in. There was no bathroom in the school. You had to go out to the outhouse to go to the bathroom. And but that was a comfortable time of life. That's just the way living was. That's the way life was, and that's the way it was. And it was enjoyable. It was not miserable. It was not hard. It was acceptable because that's where we lived. That's what we did. I think that I would much rather live in the snow country than I would on the desert. I don't know if I could adapt to the desert life, but I did adapt to the northern snow time life, and it was good. And talking about education, that's why I started talking about this morning. At the age of 30, I found myself somewhat illiterate. Not just somewhat, but almost completely illiterate, because I could read a little, but I couldn't write anything. Excuse me, because I couldn't spell. I still can't spell two things, and but I did get saved, and God is with me, and God's gave me the ability by reading the Bible through, and learning how to read the Bible, to study the Bible for the last 40 years, and now I can get through today's life. I put these things on the internet. I put them on the YouTube, and my friend puts them on the internet. And I don't even know how to do that. I just know how to sit in front of this thing. But education, since I got saved, has been one of the greatest joys in my life. To educate myself about God, about His Word, and about the world that He made, about the clouds in the sky, about the rain that falls, about the dew in the morning, about the early rain and the latter rain, about the wind, about the trees, the grass, about the lakes, the oceans, about the things that God created for man. I understand that about 1/5, and I may be wrong with this figure, about 1/5 of all the food that is eaten on this earth comes out of the ocean. And if it comes out of the ocean, it means we need to take care of our ocean. We need to educate ourselves in God's standards of how the ocean ought to be taken care of, how the rivers ought to be taken care of. We actually drink water in this town that comes from a river. And it's put through a process to cleanse it so it won't have any bad bacteria in it. The truth of the matter is, if the river was taken care of, there wouldn't be bad bacteria in it. But because we have so many people on the earth today, we pollute. So anyway, back to the education that we need. The education I needed first was the fact to know that if I had died at 30 years old, in my drunken state, in the state I was in, following the devil, cussing, swearing, stealing, lying, cheating, doing every single solitary thing that the devil would have me do, I would have died and went to hell and be eternally in hell. Or I would have ended up in prison and probably still be eternally marked for hell. But the Lord saw fit to save me. 3 o'clock one morning, November 5th, 1972, at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I asked the Lord to save me. I swore no more. Haven't sworn a swear word since 1972, November 5th. Haven't drank a beer, a drop of liquor, since 1972. It took me some years to get rid of some of the other little habits I had, and God dealt with me on those, and I've worked them out by educating myself to be able to do that. And so we have worked those out. Now, every man has a framework of life given to him by God. And it's up to that man to take that framework and work it around and remodel it and and design it to where it fits his life. And since I got saved in 1972, the framework that I was using all the wrong way, I've had to rework it to fit what God would have me do with this building that He has entered into and He now lives in. He said, if you'll ask me to forgive you of your sin, come into your heart and save your soul, I will. I'll come live in you. I will tabernacle with you. You will be my tabernacle. I am now God's tabernacle. I had to, listen to this, I had to take the room that was for alcohol out of this tabernacle and empty that room and fill it with Scripture and things that God would have me have. I had to take rudeness, ugliness, unpleasantness, all the things that went with that type of life, empty that room and say, God, fill it with your light. And then with your light, we will add the words and the things that ought to be in that room. That when I walk by somebody, I won't be rude and ignorant, I'll be pleasant. That when I leave my house in the morning, no matter what happens, I will act like Jesus acted. Can you act like Jesus acted? Do you know how He acted? You don't know how He acted if you're not in His book. You have got to get in His book if you want to know how He acted. Jesus set out every morning walking, knowing that by nightfall He would not come back to the same place. he would have to locate a place in the wilderness where he could lay his head down and use a rock for a pillow and lay his head down and lay his body down and spend the night out in a world of discomfort. But the world of discomfort can become comfortable. If the first few days you're homeless, you can't get comfortable. But the more you learn about being homeless, the more comfortable you can get. A few years ago, the Lord had me go west side, Atlanta, Georgia, and pass out tracts, which I do. I pass out tracts and give a little piece of money and witness to folks that were sleeping on the sidewalk. I found many, many, many happy homeless people. They really did not want to change their life. They were happy. It only takes a few dollars to get a meal. And they could drum a few dollars a day up on the street and get a meal. And then that night they would look and know. And I had a man set me down one time. He said, "Let me set you down, mister, tell you how to do this." And when nighttime comes, get you some newspapers, get you a piece of plastic, and get you a piece of cardboard. Put the newspapers underneath you and around you as what best you can. Put that piece of plastic over you, and get that piece of cardboard over the top of you. And you can sleep on the coldest night. And you can be comfortable throughout the night. And he's telling me just as plain as day, I'm happy. This is the way I do it at night. This is the way you can do it. And you haven't got to go out and learn like I had to learn. And I'm telling you how to do it. And so he educated me in how to keep myself if I should end up in the situation to where I'm out overnight on the street or somewhere, to get buried in some leaves or do something and get down to where I'm stay at one temperature through the night. Very good educational thing. A very good educational thing. I believe I could go out today and go up on the street and spend the night in that kind of comfort. Now there's some things I haven't educated myself in, and that's the language of those people. They have a language. They have a spot. I mean, you might lay your body down in somebody else's spot. You better be careful you don't do that. So, education and understanding and the framework of our life is very, very important. Now, we need to educate ourselves around God's Word and around what God said. And the only way we can do that would be, once we get saved, to find a church, a place of worship, to where more than one person is there, and the power of God is larger than it is sitting by yourself, and that you can educate yourself. Now, when you go to listen to a preacher, let me educate you in this. Put everything within eyesight away. If you have to, close your eyes. If you have to, close your eyes. There is times I have to close my eyes. The devil will visit you when you're educating yourself in God's Word. When you're listening to a preacher, and between you and that preacher is a baby going goo, 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 and somebody in front going goo, goo, goo. The seconds that you use watching that situation, you miss what that preacher's saying. And the time that you miss what that preacher's saying, he may have been saying the message for you. So when you're educating yourself in the Word of God, or anything else as far as that goes, pay attention to what you're educating yourself in, and do not let other things on the side distract you. I have 9 10-year-old boys in my Sunday school class. And when you have 9 10-year-old boys, you will have a rhythm child. And no, it doesn't matter what you say or do for this child. He is going to do what his little mind says from one thing to bounce off the walls. There are several ways to handle that. You take the other 8 and you say, boys, I want 100% full attention from you today. 100%. I don't care what is happening in this room. It matters not to me. I don't care what's happening around you. I want 100% attention right here. And this other young man can bounce off the wall. He can play ball. He can twirl a stick. He can get pens out. He can write on paper. He can jump up and down. He can run all the way around the table. He can do anything he wants to do. And do not let that distract you 1 second. What a good learning lesson. What a good learning lesson. And by the way, the young man that's doing the running around's hearing. He's hearing. One day God can take that and use it for him, in his framework. Right now, his framework's in trouble. But his framework can change. And then we're going to have to bear with it until it does. And so we are educating ourselves. Let's not let anything distract us. Whatever it is you're in, don't let anything distract you. I had a question from my boys last week. Have you boys thought at 10 years old what you might like to be when you're 20? I got all kinds of answers. And I asked them, what would be the possibility of what you think you want to be, of that happening? One boy said that he wanted to be a professional baseball player. Well, I can tell you right now, that's not going to happen. That is not going to happen. It's not designed in his life. His family is not able to do that. He's not able to do that. So he might as well not put that in his educational report. I said, what is your second thing? He said, I want to be an architect, what I want to be. And I asked him the question, do you know what a vanishing point is? Everything in this world, in this life, starts from a vanishing point. My view of the world, for 30 years, my vanishing point belonged to the devil. And I set out every morning to do the devil's work. Even though I was working, feeding my family, I was not doing it in a manner that was good. When I got saved, my vanishing point became God. And that's where I start out every morning now, with God. And my world is expanded. And my life is expanded. And those around me are expanded. Instead of being a drawback and a miserable person to be around, I'm a person that's pleasant. That wants to help a situation. Jump in there and help a situation. Reach across the aisle. Can you reach across the aisle and help somebody? A little short lady standing there looking up in the store at something you can comfortably reach. And you say, ma'am, can I reach that for you? What would you like? And you reach up and hand it to her. You say, that's so simple, Peter. It is. Why aren't you doing it? If it's so simple, why are you not doing it? Why are you not helping that one? standing in front of you in the line, and he's 6 cents short of having enough money to pay for what he bought. You need to be digging in your pocket, getting 6 cents out, and say, here, I'll catch that for you. Well, you say, I don't know the fella. Well, he's buying beer. Well, you can be nice. No matter what he's buying or what he's doing. You can be nice. You can have a nice example. You can have a nice, reach across the aisle. The space between you and the person around you should be filled by you with love. If you will fill the space around you with love, yeah, you get along with anybody. You can change the things around you. You can change the feelings around you. When I notice that somebody's not speaking, I speak. If I notice they have this mentality, I'll not speak to anybody I don't know. And I have this mentality that says, speak to them. Nice day, isn't it? I'm in the grocery store and I say, isn't it wonderful? We can come in the grocery store and there's more food than we could possibly have a hard time making a choice. Isn't it wonderful to live in a country where there's more food than you need? Pleasant. Be pleasant. Educate yourself in the school of pleasantness. Nobody else can educate you in the school of pleasantness. You have to educate yourself in the school of pleasantness. I found out the average person you can be pleasant to would be pleasant back. Yesterday I ran into a grunt. He didn't care to be pleasant. So I didn't care to have anything else to do with him after I was pleasant to him one time, and he was not in the mood to be pleasant to anybody. So I left him alone in his unpleasantness. The poor guy, I felt bad for him. I didn't even know him, but I still felt bad for him. It's hard to live in an unpleasant body. Unpleasantness. Oh, me. If we would adapt the mind of pleasantness, we could educate ourselves into what Jesus said in this book. He was pleasant to everybody. Do you know that Jesus was pleasant to those that put him on the cross? Do you know when he was hanging on the cross, he looked up to heaven and he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. He was pleasant to the man that said, surely you are the Son of God. And he said to him, this day you will be with me in paradise. He was pleasant to the man that railed on him, said, if you are, do this or do that. He was pleasant enough to not say anything to him. He didn't come back with some railing thing. He was pleasant enough not to say anything to him. It's very pleasant sometimes just to keep your mouth shut. And Jesus did that many times. When they asked him, are you Jesus? And he said, you say that I am. Whatever. Let's open ourselves to the richness of living for God, in God, through God, with a spiritual education that is pleasantness. I don't know who you are looking at this today. But whoever you are looking at this today, whatever time it is or whatever it is, if you have any thoughts in your head about anybody that are unpleasant, it would be good for you to go to them and say, forgive me. I've had some thoughts about you that aren't pleasant, and I'd like you to know that I'm not going to have those thoughts anymore, and that's it. Well, you say, I don't even know that person sits over there, but I have all kinds of thoughts about him. Well, go tell him that. One of the first things I learned in 1972 when I got saved, there was a man I didn't like. Why didn't I like him? I don't know why I didn't like him, I just didn't like him. One day I walked over there and said to him, called him by name, said, I want to tell you something. I have this thing in me that says I don't like you. And I figure if it says I don't like you, it must be from the devil. And I'm going to tell you that I'm going to get rid of it. And from today on, I'm going to shake your hand, hug your neck, and I'm going to love you in the Lord. And that was the end of that. And we've been good friends for 40 years ever since. I erased the problem that came to me from the devil that would have perhaps killed my testimony through that one situation. You say, can one situation kill you? Yes, it can. We need to experience every day something that we do that's especially unselfish for somebody. You come home at night wore out and frail and say, man, this has been the toughest day and nothing good happened today. You got to make something good happen. You're the one that has to make something good happen. You can take an apple, and I don't have any bottom teeth, and I love apples. I can take that apple, I cannot eat it, I can cut it up, I still can't eat it. But I can put it in a pie and bake it and have a soft apple that I can eat. So take every situation and bake it out and make it work. Do you know a heavenly language? Do you have within you a heavenly language? A heavenly language is a love language. It's in spite of everything that's going on around us, I'm going to love you. In spite of what you do, I'm going to love you. In spite of what you look like. In spite of the fact your feet may stink, I'm still going to love you. I have had in times past to have to just be careful that I did that I didn't regurgitate from the smell of somebody, and yet I showed them love. You have to do that. Your emotions ought to be from God. All of the emotions of your body and your daily living ought to be from God. Jesus walked across this world. Listen, he loved everybody. He loved everybody, no matter who. He loved Judas so much he dipped his hand to sop in the thing and sopped with Judas just before Judas betrayed him. He loved Peter, who denied him vehemently. He denied Jesus Christ, said, I do not know the man. And when Jesus came back, he said to Mary, you go tell those disciples I'm back, and be sure and tell Peter. Did Peter hurt the heart of Jesus? Perhaps and perhaps not. The carnality of a man, Jesus probably just said, well, he's carnal. He'll get over that. He's just carnal. He'll get over that. Give him a day or two. Yeah, we want to win a soul and have him come into the church and expect him to be in the next prayer meeting praying by himself out loud. Hey, it ain't going to happen. we need to allow those around us to grow and get educated. My time has come and gone. This is Brother Peter with tidbits from the Word. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.